Hello, hello. Welcome. I'm just going to wait a minute or so for people to join live if they'd like to. And just say hi if you're watching. Um, and maybe you can give us some idea of like where you're at with this topic that we're going to speak about today. Like, are you feeling like, yes, I feel like I have so much purpose and meaning in my life right now, in my career, feeling good about it, feeling excited to go to work every day, um, feeling like my work is making an impact, or are you feeling a little bit more disconnected from that? A bit, like you're lacking purpose, feeling like you don't really have a strong reason to keep going to work every day, maybe even dreading going to work, going through the motions, just like, okay, another day. This is just what it is. Let us know in the comments where you are on that, and you can let us know when you're watching the replay as well. For those of you who aren't joining live, just hashtag replay in the comments and just let us know for you as well. And sometimes Facebook doesn't always show me if people are joining live, so if you are joining live, give us a wave, say hi, and let us know how you're feeling when it comes to a sense of purpose or meaning in your career. So that's what we're talking about today. And it's a topic that I've been exploring a little bit more for myself. Currently going through a program as a coach, with a coach, as a coach. And this is something that we've been exploring, and I just found so many similarities and so many things that I was like, yes, this is like my people need to hear this as well. And even just on that, I think it's so important. I mean, even just in this group, there are different healthcare professions in this group. And so just in the group as well, but I really think it's important to know that the things that we struggle with, the things that we feel are making us unfulfilled or unhappy at work, they aren't unique to our profession. And the details of it might be slightly different in each profession, but please know that every profession has their things. And it'll be different for each person because it's like your personality, your upbringing, your beliefs, your everything, and it's that colliding with the work that you do. So you can have the exact same work environment as someone else and be so unhappy, and they are like, this is the best place ever. You can have two people in the exact same profession. One is extremely fulfilled and happy, and the other one is like dreading work, going to work every day. So it's not specifically about the profession, and that's something that I really do want to make sure that you know. That isn't to say that you don't eventually maybe end up going to a different profession, but I think if you, like I talk about, I'm going to talk about that quite a bit today as well. But if the reason that you're doing that is to get away from certain discomfort, you're just going to find new types of discomfort in your profession. So I always encourage healthcare professionals who are unhappy in their career to not just immediately switch to something else without kind of processing and working through and teasing out like, what is it about this particular situation, and is that something that is worth working on anyway, regardless of whether I decide to leave, or is it something that's just very specific to this job or this career and I don't need to kind of worry about that. But I just feel like anything that we work on that is like in the realm of just developing and growing as humans, right, is going to help us with any next step that we take. So it's worth doing that work. It really is. So yeah, that's just the first thing I wanted to say. It isn't just like your profession, so don't worry. And yeah, so today we're going to be talking about again reconnecting with that, or maybe for the first time. But if you did have that and now you feel disconnected from it, but reconnecting to that sense of purpose, of feeling like you have this strong reason for why you do what you do. And I think if we think about it, and you can share in the comments as well, like, what was the reason you got into this work in the first place? What was your reason behind it? What did you think it was going to be like? Right. So we want to reconnect with that sense of why we wanted to get into it in the first place. And I think for most clinicians, that is some version of, I wanted to help people. And so really reconnecting with that again, like really reconnecting with that sense of service, of helping, of, I guess service is the best word for that, but like reconnecting with that sense of purpose behind why we do what we do. And we'll talk about all the things that kind of can disconnect us from that as well. But yeah, that's where I think it's important to start, is because we went into the profession with, like, you know, we thought it was going to be amazing, and we're going to be so fulfilled, and we're going to be helping people all day, and like, what could be better than that, right? And then we come up against realities of, sometimes it's during our studies, sometimes it is in the early years of practice or in the later years of practice, but we come up against things that disconnect us from that. And in a lot of ways, those things are moments where you realize maybe that it isn't what you thought it would be. And I'd love to know in the comments what comes to mind when you think of these kind of moments. Like, what kind of moments do you feel disconnected you from that sense of, like, oh my gosh, I get to go to work every day and help people? What disconnects you from that? And this can be different things. So like, sometimes it's people criticizing your career choice or making fun of your career choice. Sometimes that is someone scaring you with their sort of story of it, like, oh, you don't want to go into that profession. Like, maybe it's someone that is in the same profession as you and like was telling you all the terrible things about it, and like why you're never gonna like be successful or make any money, or it's not great because patients are like this, or, you know, whatever it is. It can be things like, you know, you didn't expect that. Like, you just thought, I'm going to go to work every day and I'm going to help people all day. And you didn't really expect, you didn't know what the realities of the profession were. You didn't know that sometimes you wouldn't be able to help someone. You didn't know that sometimes there is a genuine risk of you making someone worse. You didn't know that people weren't going to just be like so excited to invest in your service, and they weren't going to just be grateful all the time and like do everything you said and respect you, and all these kinds of things, right? Like all these moments where it was just different. Sorry, I just had a list of examples that I'm trying to find where I was. Yeah, patients always being like grateful and following all your advice. And yeah, part of that is like not realizing, we didn't know going in that there were going to be all these skills that we needed to learn. We just thought, you know, like whatever we learn at university, that's all we need, and we will have like a thriving practice, we'll be fulfilled, we'll be happy every day. And then you learn like all the other skills, or you are made aware of all the other skills that you actually need, like communicating with patients, leading and guiding a patient, your own like self-concept and your confidence. These all play a part in how you feel at work, right? Just general adulting sometimes, right? Like financial stuff, business skills, things like, you know, marketing yourself or selling your services, and like speaking to people about what you do and encouraging them to come and see you, and like all of that kind of stuff. Like there's so many things that we as clinicians will say, like, I wish I could just do my job and not have to do all of these other things, right? Because that's what we expected. We thought we were just going to be doing the thing, and now there are all these other things that we have to do that we maybe didn't expect and don't necessarily enjoy, or maybe aren't necessarily good at. I'll share two stories from my own journey as a chiropractor. So the one big moment that I think for me was quite pivotal is I think it was either first year or second year. I think it must have been second year. But we had a physiology professor. I can't remember his name right now, but I'm sure the UJ people will help me out there. But we had a physiology professor, and we literally walked into the first day. I think it was like the first day of physiology practicals or something, and I just remember him making some comment about how we were all there, all us chiropractors were there because we couldn't get into medicine. And it was such a like big moment for me when I realized how people saw, or certain people, but in that moment it was like, this is how people see my profession. This is how people see me because of my profession. Like, it was this moment where I realized like people can make assumptions and judgments about me purely based on my career choice. And it was a long sort of, yeah, it led me down a whole long path of like wanting to switch to medicine, but it was all from the space of like wanting to prove that I could do that. Like, listen, I am smart enough to get into medicine. I just never wanted to study medicine, right? It was never like, you know, this passion of mine. And, you know, honestly, chiropractic wasn't either. It was something that it was like, you know, the way we make decisions when we're young sometimes. But I mean, we're teenagers then. But I remember job shadowing a lot of different people. And the chiropractors that I shadowed were the only people who looked like they were actually enjoying their job. They were like so excited to be at work. They were so excited to be doing what they're doing. They couldn't like stop talking about how amazing this career was. And everybody else that I'd gone to, like I'd gone to a lawyer, radio DJ person, hairdresser, honestly, I tried everything, chemical engineering, like I'd gone to all these different things, and like people just seemed really either bored or miserable. And the chiropractor that I went to go see was the first time that I experienced someone being so happy in their career, and that was like part of the reason that I went there. And also one of my best friends at the time, her whole family was like really enthusiastic about chiropractic. So anyway, but just being exposed to this idea of like, oh, like people aren't just going to be like, oh, this is amazing what you're doing, and people are going to make certain judgments about me, and people are going to think certain things of me. And the second was like, I really thought that if I was just helping people, that I would be happy. I thought that was the only ingredient that was necessary for a happy and fulfilled career. And that was really a shift of mine when I realized like, even when I'm helping people, and even when I was helping people in like what I would call the purest way, when I was working at World Spine Care for a little while. So as a volunteer, right? So like, I feel like all I'm doing is helping. I'm not trying to like sell myself, which I thought was the reason that I was unhappy in practice. I was like, oh, but I'm just not good at like the marketing and selling and all of that. But here I didn't have to do any of that. There were more than enough patients. I was helping. It was purely just out of like helping. And I still wasn't happy. And I was like, it was like there was some like identity. It challenged my identity quite a lot, because I really did think that was the only thing I needed in order to be happy and fulfilled. And there were other things, like comment yours as well, and like what you resonate with. But there were also things like I mentioned, I didn't want to have to like sell my services. I was like, I just want to be able to be a really good chiropractor, and then people will just magically show up at my practice. I was like, why is this not happening? And the thought was like, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to like, you know, market myself or talk about what I do, or like tell people why they should come and see me. Like, I shouldn't have to do that. There were also things like, the behavior change thing was a huge thing for me. I really was excited to help people, and like for me, part of the the thing that I was so passionate about was like giving advice, helping people change their lifestyle, helping them live generally like healthier lives and move more. And I just remember this like realization that, oh, I don't just encourage someone to do that or advise them to do that and then they go and do it. Like, that's not how behavior change works. And you might relate to this as a healthcare professional. Like, sometimes we get very frustrated and we make judgments about our patients. And that's the second like category, that like what makes you disconnect from the people that you're serving. So the people that you're helping, your patients, what makes you disconnect from them? And that can be things like judgment, right? Making certain judgments about your patients. A common one is patients don't want to take responsibility for their health, or things like they just want quick fixes. They don't care about their health. They maybe don't respect me if they're like not listening to advice. They say they want to get better, but they don't actually want to get better. They just want me to do all the work. Like, any judgment about your patient disconnects you from them and disconnects you from that feeling of like, I really just want to help you, a fellow human being. I want to help you. When we're judging someone, that disconnects us. When we get into like our own mental narrative, right? And this comes from like when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling insecure, when we're feeling, like you're an imposter, when you're feeling like you are just overwhelmed by everything, you're exhausted, all that kind of like, I want to say like self-focus, you're thinking about you, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like that in the moment. You generally think like, I'm being anxious because I just want to be such a good practitioner, right? It's like, it feels like it's for your patients. But all those things take us away from the focus of our patient. It takes us away from being present and engaged with our patients. And it takes us on our own like little mental journey when we're taking things personally. When someone's not feeling better and we go like into this whole thing of like, what did I do wrong? We usually either blame ourselves or we blame the other person. But either way, it's some like mental narrative that is happening when you could be engaged with that patient. When you are needing something from your patients, when you need them to validate you, when you need them to appreciate you, when you need them to respect you and your profession, and your methods, right? When you need them to like you as a person, when you need them to admire you. Right? Like, think about like, what do you feel you need from your patient in order to feel good, in order to feel happy, in order to feel fulfilled? What do you need from your patient? What are you wanting your patient to give you instead of accessing that yourself? So all of that disconnects us from either our profession itself or just that pure like desire to help another human being. It disconnects us from that, and it can disconnect us from the person themselves, from the patient that is right in front of us in that moment. So I was going to move on to like, what can we do when we realize this, right? So that's the first part of it, is like just realizing, maybe getting familiar with why maybe do you feel disconnected from that. And then I think a sort of like middle stage, like once you know that, before we sort of move on to this is how we're going to feel fulfilled and this is how we're going to feel purposeful and happy and all of that, think about like, if those are moments that you've never really thought about, never really processed, I think it's really important to do that and to really allow yourself to feel the emotions that come with it. Often the like anger and frustration and like annoyance and all of those are just covering up like a feeling of sadness or disappointment. Like, you can almost think of it as like grieving the career that you thought you were going to have. Grieving what you thought life and your career and helping people was going to look like. And I think that's really important. And processing all of that really does help you with the next step, and it also helps you identify, like, okay, that's why I'm in this space. It's not because I'm a bad person, it's not because I stopped caring about people, it's not because like I'm this terrible clinician, it's not because I'm selfish, it's just because I had this vision of what this was going to be like, and it ended up being something different, and I feel that disconnect. And then when we have sat with that, these things can happen obviously like simultaneously, but I would say like give yourself a little bit of time to process that, especially if it was something quite big, something quite traumatic, or that just felt traumatic to you, right? It doesn't have to be like something objectively huge that happened, but just like something that felt really big for you. Like that professor saying that probably to another person in my class was like, okay, whatever, another person could be like, yeah, that's actually true. I couldn't get into medicine, and for another person, they had like zero desire and no insecurity about how smart they were and no feeling like they need to prove it. And so they had a completely different reaction to that. So it's all about like what affected you and getting really honest about that and processing that. And then the next sort of step that we're moving into is like, I spoke about this earlier in the week. There's a video on radical responsibility sort of earlier in the group. I think it was like 2 days ago or something. But the idea is just that when we are in that space, like, okay, I am now in the space where I've realized this is why I'm not feeling purposeful. This is why I don't have a strong connection to my meaning or to my why behind my work. This is why I'm feeling disconnected from the profession. This is why I'm feeling disconnected from helping other people. This is why I'm feeling disconnected from my patients, the people that I'm actually serving. Right? This is why. And accepting the reality of, okay, maybe this profession and this work is not what I thought it was going to be, but now that I know that reality, I need to take ownership of what I'm going to do next. I need to take responsibility for making sure that I have a fulfilling career, that I'm happy, that I want to go to work, that I want to help people. And I'm not saying your career has to be like your whole life. That's not what I'm saying. But let's not make it this miserable thing where you're burnt out and resentful and dreading work and just not enjoying it. And I honestly feel like your profession can be this incredible thing that you genuinely want to go to every day. But some people might not want that from their career, and that's totally fine. But taking ownership of that and saying like, I'm actually responsible for my own fulfillment and my own happiness at work. I'm not going to wait for my patients to give me what I think they should give me. I'm not going to wait for my boss to do this or that. I'm not going to wait for my profession to change in this way. I'm going to take responsibility and ownership for my own health and fulfillment and happiness in my career. And again, that is not to say it's your fault. That is not to say there aren't any external factors. It's not to say you're like blaming yourself for this. It's like, if you take ownership of that and responsibility, then you get into the driver's seat and you get to control what you can control and influence what you can influence and make the decisions that need to be made. And sometimes those are hard decisions. They can be really hard decisions. So maybe you didn't know before you went into this that you have to be this brilliant communicator and have this ability to connect with other human beings. But now that you do know that, what are you going to do about it? Maybe you didn't know that patients weren't always going to be gushing with gratitude and weren't always going to do the things that you told them to do, and they weren't always going to get better. And now that you know that, what are you going to do? Maybe you didn't know that you had to have leadership skills and be able to lead your patient and to be like, essentially sell them on this idea of like, this is where I want to take you. This is where you could be. This is how this could benefit your life. Selling them on the idea of why it's so important to do their exercises, right? We just say like, do your exercises. We think that's going to be enough, right? Like behavior change skills, coaching skills, leadership skills. Like now that you know that those are necessary, and not to like this huge extent where you're specializing in that, but just like now that you know what skills are necessary, being able to talk about what you do confidently, be able to know that what you do has so much value and that you are doing a service by telling someone why they should come and see you. Like now that you know that all of these things actually are required, what do you want to do about it? And I like to say, like, one of the descriptions for my coaching is like, I help clinicians find their way. And then within that, finding your way doesn't mean necessarily staying where you are, right? Finding your way can be, I say it as like, it's through, it's in, or it's out. So like just getting through like a difficult period, or getting through like this next step that you're taking in your career, or you are finding your way in, so like back into your profession, reconnecting with your profession, reconnecting with what you love about it, finding that fulfillment. Maybe you change your situation in some way, like you start your own practice, or you join a practice, or you go into a new like niche or area of special interest, but it's back into your profession in some way. And then the other option is out, going to a new profession, a new job, an entirely new career path. Maybe it's a new country. So these are all options for once you know, like, okay, this is the reality. But it almost always starts with going through and being exactly where you are and learning from that. I like to think about it as like navigating your career is like self-development on steroids. You're going to come up against everything. All the ways that you people please, the ways that you perfect, the ways that you try and prove things, the way that you like mold yourself to fit other people, all the things like the way that you work, the way that you kind of just go and go and go and go and ignore your own internal like signals of needing rest and recovery. It's going to bring up your your guilt around resting, like all of these things. So just know that when you are unhappy and you are unfulfilled and you feel a certain way in your career, I really want you to get used to that idea that this is an opportunity for me to learn about myself, to grow, to evolve into the person that I actually want to be. And then when we are taking the next step in our career, whether that's in, out, through, we're doing it not from a place of, I'm just trying to avoid this discomfort, right? We've sat in the discomfort, we've felt it, we've allowed ourselves to feel it, we've allowed ourselves to process it, we've allowed ourselves to learn from it and see like, what is this discomfort trying to tell me? We're getting clear on like why it's uncomfortable. And so we're not just making our decisions based off of avoiding discomfort. Because I promise you that avoidance of discomfort is just going to follow you to your next step. Like, I mean, I have moved so many times in my life, and I remember traveling once and having this like sinking feeling of like, I'm still me. Like, I'm in this amazing place. I'm in this beautiful place that I've traveled to. This is just like vacation travel, holiday travel. But just like this realization that like, if I'm not at peace here, if I'm like struggling, I'm anxious, I'm at the time it was more, I think, an awareness of like how, what do you call it? Like restricted I was as a person, inhibited, that's the word. Like I just felt insecure all the time and anxious, particularly socially anxious. and just realizing like, oh, I'm in a whole different place, but I still feel exactly the same. I don't feel like that now. I more feel like the opposite. Like it doesn't matter where I am, because in my mind, I'm so like free, and like there's so much psychological peace that it almost doesn't matter like where specifically I am. But it's just like a reminder of like, you can go to the next country, you can be in the next relationship, you can be in the next job, you can be in the next career, and these things will follow you. Because if you're not actually dealing with the developmental aspect of it, like we are still developing as adults, right? So just like children have their developmental phases, we also have our developmental phases as adults. And so all of those things are just showing us where we need to mature, where we need to develop, what skills we need, and like that's also what I just wanted to make sure you know, like nothing has gone wrong. Right? Like if you are unhappy and unfulfilled, keep leaving the if you're feeling all these things, nothing has gone wrong. If you want to do a whole different career, nothing has gone wrong. So just know that. Okay, awesome. I think that was all I wanted to say about that. And yeah, if this is something that you are struggling with and you want support in actually doing that next step, whether that's leaving, whether that's reconnecting with what you do, maybe that's making a change within your profession. I always say, like, you can either do a different career or you can do your career differently. And if either of those that you want, with either of those that you want support, that is exactly what I do. So I would like to invite you to work with me. You can reach out to me, send me a DM, we can chat about that. We'll set up a call to talk about it. But yeah, it's something that I am deeply passionate about, is that when clinicians are excited about what they do, when they're actually like connected to their patients, when you are like leaning into your strengths as a clinician, all those things like create amazing things for you and your patients, and by extension the profession, the system, the world. So it has this like ripple effect on so many things. And because you're working on like you developing as a person, that ripples out to every area of your life. It ripples out to your relationships, to your physical health, your mental health. And we work on all of that as like part of the whole picture. Like none of it is separate from each other. But it all, like when you work on one area, you're working on all these areas as well. So working on your career affects how you do everything else as well, and how happy and fulfilled you are in the rest of your life as well, and how psychologically peaceful it is, how peaceful it is inside your brain. Okay, awesome. Thank you for joining, and let me know your experiences with this, and yeah, just let me know how you're feeling, if you feel like you are able to reconnect a little bit with that sense of purpose and that meaning. I love hearing those stories. So yeah, feel free to message me or just comment on this live. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.